She thought she was the only Deathworlder until she met a human. Aeryn gripped the vibrating deck plates of the Starcross as the gravity stabilizers flickered, her four-fingered hands digging into the reinforced alloy. Born on a world where the pull of the core snapped the bones of lesser species, she was used to being the most dangerous thing in any room. The secondary coolant line had ruptured, and the magnetic containment shield was seconds from failing. Through the haze of escaping gas, she saw the human, Bruce, standing near the primary heat sink. He wasn't wearing a pressurized suit, only a grease-stained undershirt that clung to his broad shoulders. To her shock, he was manually hauling a 300-pound lead shutter into place, his muscles bulging and cording with a violent energy she had never seen in a soft species. "Get the override switch," he yelled. His voice was a low growl that vibrated in her chest. Aeryn hesitated, her blue skin flushing with a mix of adrenaline and confusion. "The pressure will crush your ribs," she shouted back. The human didn't flinch, his feet planted firmly as the floor groaned beneath his boots. "Just do it, Aeryn," he replied. She lunged for the console, her movements a blur of predatory grace. As she slammed the override, the shutter hissed shut, locking with a finality that saved the deck. Bruce let out a long breath, his hands trembling slightly as he leaned against the hot metal. Aeryn approached him, her height nearly matching his, her eyes scanning the sheer power he had just displayed. No creature from a non-death world should have survived that strain. She reached out, her cool palm brushing against his bicep, feeling the heat radiating from his skin. It was like touching a sun. "How did you hold that?" she whispered. She let her fingers linger on his damp skin. Bruce looked up, his dark eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that made her pulse spike. "Adrenaline is a hell of a drug," he said. He stood up straight, closing the distance between them until she could feel his breath. "You are shaking," she noted. She watched his chest rise and fall in a heavy, rhythmic pattern. "That is just the aftershock," he answered. He reached out, his thumb grazing her jawline, the friction of his calloused skin sending a jolt of electricity through her. Aeryn was a Valari. She was supposed to be the predator, yet in the shadow of this human, she felt a strange, thrilling vulnerability. The emergency lights bathed the corridor in a deep crimson, highlighting the sharp lines of his face and the raw strength in his frame. The ship groaned again, a deep metal ache that signaled the repair was only temporary. They were still drifting in the void of the Arlo sector, and the main reactor was bleeding energy. Bruce grabbed a toolkit, his movements efficient and full of a quiet confidence that drew Aeryn in. She followed him into the crawlspace, the narrow confines forcing their bodies to brush against one another. Every time his shoulder bumped hers, she felt a surge of heat. Valari were cold-blooded by nature, needing external warmth to maintain their metabolic rate, and Bruce was a walking furnace. She found herself leaning into him, her senses overwhelmed by his scent, earth, salt, and something uniquely masculine. "We need to reach the core," he said. He crawled forward, his back muscles shifting under his shirt. "I can carry the heavy components," she offered. She wanted to prove her worth, to show him she wasn't some fragile creature. "I know you can," he replied. He turned his head, a smirk playing on his lips that made her heart hammer against her ribs. "But I like watching you move," he added. Aeryn felt her internal temperature rise to dangerous levels. She was used to being feared or respected for her combat prowess, but Bruce looked at her with a hunger that had nothing to do with war. It was a challenge, a silent invitation to explore the friction between their species. They reached the subdeck where the gravity was fluctuating wildly. Aeryn stumbled as the pull doubled, her knees buckling under the sudden weight. Bruce caught her instantly, his arms wrapping around her waist to steady her. He didn't seem affected by the change at all. He stood firm, a pillar of stability in the chaos. Aeryn looked at him, her breath hitching in her throat. "The gravity is at 4 GS, she gasped. She tried to stand, but her muscles felt like lead. "Is it?" he asked. He didn't let go of her, his hands pressing firmly into the small of her back. "It feels like a light workout," he joked. Aeryn froze, her mind racing. Celeprime was a 3G world, and it was considered one of the harshest environments in the known galaxy. Humans were supposed to be from a moderate system. "What is the classification of your home planet?" she demanded. She pushed back against him, needing to see his face. Bruce pulled her closer instead, his grip tightening in a way that was both possessive and protective. "Earth is a Category 12, he said. He watched her eyes widen in disbelief. That is impossible, she whispered. The word slipped out before she could stop it. Category 12 was a Deathworld designation reserved for planets with extreme tectonic activity, predatory atmospheres, and lethal fauna. We call it home, he replied. He leaned in, his lips inches from her ear. Everything on Earth is trying to kill you, Aeryn, he murmured. So we learned how to be harder than the world around us, he continued. The revelation hit her like a kinetic blast. She wasn't the only Deathworlder on the ship. She was looking at a man who had evolved in a literal hellscape compared to her own. The air in the subdeck grew thick with the smell of ionized gas and the heavy, sweet scent of Aeryn's pheromones. She couldn't help it. The discovery of his true nature had triggered a biological response she couldn't suppress. Bruce noticed, his nostrils flaring as he took her in. He backed her against a cooling pipe, his body a solid wall of muscle that pinned her in place. The danger of the ship was forgotten, replaced by the immediate, overwhelming need to connect. You are burning up, he said. His voice was a low vibration that traveled through her skin. I need the heat, she confessed. She arched her neck, inviting his touch. Then take it, he replied. He crashed his lips onto hers, a move that was as calculated as it was wild. The kiss was a collision of cultures and biologies. Bruce tasted of iron and fire, his tongue sweeping against hers with a dominance that Aeryn met with equal fervor. She wrapped her legs around his waist, her strength finally returning as she drew from his thermal energy. He groaned into her mouth, his hands sliding under her tunic to find the soft, sensitive skin of her hips. The friction was nearly unbearable, a sweet agony that demanded more. He was so much stronger than he let on. His fingers leaving faint marks on her skin that she knew would turn to bruises. She didn't care. She wanted to feel the full weight of a Category 12 predator. Bruce, she breathed. She pulled back, her eyes glowing with a faint bioluminescence. The reactor, she reminded him. Her voice was thick with desire, but the warrior in her knew they were still in peril. 5 minutes, he rasped. He buried his face in the crook of her neck, his teeth grazing her pulse point. I can fix it in 5 minutes, he promised. He gave her one last, bruising kiss before dropping her back to the deck. Aeryn watched him work, her body still trembling from the encounter. He moved with a precision that was terrifying, his hands flying over the damaged circuits. He wasn't just an engineer, he was a force of nature, a testament to humanity's refusal to die. As he reconnected the primary conduits, a siren blared through the ship. A boarding party from the Atlanta Syndicate had latched onto their hull. They were scavengers, known for their cruelty and their specialized exosuits. Aeryn drew her pulse blade, her instincts shifting instantly back to combat mode. Stay behind the shielding, she commanded. She stepped in front of Bruce, her eyes scanning the ceiling for the breach point. I don't think so, he said. He picked up a heavy torque wrench, weighing it in his hand like a mace. I'm not a fan of uninvited guests, he added. The ceiling buckled, and 3 armored figures dropped into the room, their weapons raised. Aeryn moved first, a blur of blue and steel. She took down the first scavenger with a strike to the neck. Her blade hummed as it cut through the exosuit seals. But the other 2 opened fire, their plasma bolts searing the air. She dove for cover, but Bruce didn't hide. He moved with a predatory speed that defied his bulk, closing the distance to the second scavenger before the alien could recalibrate its aim. He swung the wrench with a sheer force that shattered the scavenger's helmet, the impact echoing through the small chamber. He didn't stop, grabbing the third alien by the throat and slamming it into the bulkhead with such violence that the metal dented. Aeryn watched in awe as Bruce dismantled the remaining threat with his bare hands. He wasn't using fancy techniques. He was using the raw, unyielding power of a species that had survived ice ages and global wars. He looked back at her, his face splattered with green alien blood, his eyes dark and wild. Are you hurt? He asked. He dropped the unconscious scavenger to the floor. No, she replied. She sheathed her blade, her heart swelling with a pride she had never felt for another. You fight like a demon, she noted. She walked toward him, stepping over the wreckage of the boarding party. Just a human, Aeryn, he said. He wiped the blood from his cheek, his breathing barely elevated. They made their way back to the bridge, where the rest of the crew, led by Alana, was huddled in fear. When they saw Bruce and Aeryn enter, a collective sigh of relief filled the room. The human had not only fixed the ship but had cleared the path of enemies. Alana looked at the two of them, noticing the way they stood close together, their bodies still radiating the tension of their encounter. "The stabilizers are back online," Alana said. She looked at Bruce with a newfound respect. "We owe you our lives," she added. Bruce nodded, his hand finding Aeryn's in the shadows. "Just doing my job," he replied, but the way he squeezed Aeryn's hand told a different story. Later, in the quiet of the observation deck, they watched the stars of the Arlo sector drift by. The ship was silent now, the hum of the engine a steady, comforting presence. Aeryn sat on the bench, her head resting on Bruce's shoulder. She felt the steady beat of his heart, a rhythmic reminder of the life that pulsed so strongly within him. "I never thought I would meet someone like you," she said. She traced the lines of his palm with her finger. "A Deathworlder?" he asked. He smiled, the tension of the day finally fading. "A human," she corrected. She looked up at him, her gaze soft. "You are more than your world, Bruce," she added. "You are the fire that keeps it at bay," she concluded. Bruce turned to her, his expression serious. He took both of her hands in his thumbs stroking the back of her knuckles. "And you are the only one who can handle the heat," he whispered. He leaned in, his lips brushing against hers in a promise of things to come. "I don't plan on going anywhere," he said. The connection between them was no longer just about survival or physical need. It was a bond forged in the crucible of a Class X world, a union of two predators who had found their match in the vastness of the galaxy. Aeryn closed her eyes, letting the warmth of his body envelope her, knowing that together they were truly unstoppable. The mission continued, but the dynamic of the crew had shifted. Everyone knew that the human in the engine room was a force to be reckoned with, and the Valari warrior at his side was his equal in every way. They became a legend in the fleet, a story told to remind others that humanity was not to be underestimated. In the dark corners of the galaxy, where danger lurked in every nebula, the names of Bruce and Aeryn became synonymous with resilience. They proved that even in the cold void of space, the heat of a human heart could change the course of history. As they approached the next jump point, Bruce looked at the navigation console, his fingers moving with practiced ease. He glanced at Aeryn, who was checking the ship's sensors. "Ready for the next one?" he asked. He reached out, his hand resting on the back of her chair. "With you," she said. She turned to him, a fierce smile on her lips. "Always," she added. The jump drive engaged, and the star-cross vanished into the fold, carrying with it the two most dangerous beings in the universe, bound together by a love that was as intense as the worlds that had birthed them. The galaxy was a vast, often cruel place, but it was also a place of wonder. For Aeryn, the greatest wonder was the man sitting beside her. She had spent her life believing she was alone in her strength, a solitary hunter in a world of prey. But Bruce had shown her that there was beauty in the struggle, and that the most powerful thing in existence was the will to survive and the passion to thrive. She watched him, his profile silhouetted against the shifting colors of hyperspace, and she knew that she had finally found her home. Their story was just beginning, a narrative of fire and ice, of gravity and grace. Every day was a new challenge, a new opportunity to show the universe what a human and a Valari could achieve together. They were the bridge between worlds, the living proof that even the harshest environments could produce something magnificent. As the ship hurtled toward its destination, the two of them remained anchored to each other, a constant in an ever-changing cosmos. In the end, it wasn't the gravity of their planets that defined them, but the gravity of their souls. They were pulled together by a force stronger than any star, a connection that transcended biology and physics. Bruce and Aeryn were a testament to the fact that when two Deathworlders meet, the result isn't destruction, but a creation of something new, something vital, and something that would echo through the stars for generations to come.